Hi everyone. For your homework this week, you're going to start tracing your composition sketch in Illustrator. You should aim to have at least 75% of it done for the homework. Alright, so what you're going to want to do to start is download whatever template you need, either the vertical one or the horizontal one. I did my sketch vertically, so I'm going to download the vertical template. I'm going to right click on it and do Save Link As, and then I'll just save it into my folder here. Then just locate it and rename it here where it says your name. And then you can just double click it to open it. Okay, so you should see this when you open it. If your layers panel isn't up, just go to Window and select Layers or use F7. So on the Layers panel, you should see Sketch Scan. This is where you're going to place your sketch in. You should see this organization layer, which just gives you a little rundown on how to organize everything if you need a refresher. And we also have the instructions layer, and this just tells you how to get started with everything, but I'll go through this with you. At the top here I have a mask layer that should say mask, so you can just rename that if you want. So what this mask layer does, I'll just turn it off for now and create a quick new layer. It should always stay at the top if you create a square. So right now it goes off the side of your artboard. So if you want to view it as one piece, you can just hit that and it'll just show you what we're going to see. So you can build stuff that bleeds off the side and then just cover it up with the mask. You can leave that off if it's easier for you to trace without it on. Alright, I'll just delete that layer that I created. Okay, so to start, I'm going to turn that back on. To start, we want to select the Sketch Scan layer. Select that one. This is where it's going to place our sketch. And do File, Place. So let's go up to File and Place. So you want to find your composition sketch. I have mine right here. And if this link is checked, make sure it's not checked. That's going to embed it in, and you'd want that instead of it linked, because then when I open your project on my computer, it's going to look for this file on your computer because it wasn't embedded. So make sure that isn't checked. Okay, so once you have it selected, and that's not checked, hit Place. So now I have the option to click here. I'm on my Sketch Scan layer, and I'm just going to click to place, and then we can move it and scale it into position. So what I'm going to do is just hide the instructions and organization layer so I can see. I'll also turn off the mask layer for now so I can see around the side. And I'm going to select my image. I'm just going to move it into place. Make sure that you have your selection tool selected. So you can see where I have to line it up. You can even use your arrows and just move it into place. So it is a little bit too big. So what I'm going to do is just grab it by the corner and scale it in. You can even go a little more than that. So you just kind of want to get it into a good position. Then once it's in there, I'm going to lock it and also just lock that top layer. Now you can't move it around, it's locked in there. I'm going to select my mask and it covers over everything. Okay, so what you want to do is decide where you want to start and what needs to be on its own layers. So I'm going to make a layer for the scarecrow, I'm going to make a trees layer, I'll make a bat layer, I'll make a house layer, and then I think I'll do a background layer. And in my background layer I'll have the sky, the hill, the path, and the moon. And then I can make the moon on a sub-layer because that's going to have these little craters on it, so those will be separate pieces. That'll be its own sub-layer in the background layer. So let's start with that first. I'm just going to leave the instructions and organization layers on for now, so I'll just create a new layer here, and I'm going to name that one background. Okay, so with the background layer selected, I'm first going to start with my sky. Now to do your sky, I don't have to trace all around here to do it. I can just make a big square because that's going to be right in the very back. So everything else, like the hill, will be layered over it, so that's going to define the sky. So that I can just grab a rectangle tool. And you don't want to do any color on this one. We're going to not do any color until next week. So you want to make sure you have the stroke selected. We're going to put a color on the stroke. Right now it's crossed out, so it's nothing. And you want to pick a color that you can see easily over your line. So I don't want to go with a black or a gray. I'm going to go with a red. And then I'm going to make my sky. So I just want to make sure it comes lower than where my hill is here. And it can bleed off the side, that's fine. So right now I have it set to white color, so this is what happens when you try to do it with color on. It's going to block out everything. So we want to select the color swatch here, and then hit none. So that's going to get rid of the color. and we still have our line there. So right now that's going to be our sky. We're going to start building stuff over top of it. So we're going to name this. We're going to expand our background layer, find our sky path that we just made, and name that to sky. Okay, next I'm going to start with this hill here. So I'm going to grab my pen tool and then just start building this shape. And I'm going to come off the side here to build it. And so we're just going to slowly build the hill. And remember, it needs to be in one closed shape. So I'm just going to come all the way down the side here, around the bottom, and then back up to the top. And that's going to be my hill. And I can come in and clean these up and smooth those out. Okay, now we're going to name that path that we just made hill. And we'll continue on with creating this path here. Grab my pen tool. I'm going to start up here. It's kind of hard to see, but you can move stuff around. I'm going to zoom in on it actually. So I think my path starts about here. And then goes around here. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect yet because you can come and clean up after. And then I'm going to use spacebar to pan. And even though it goes behind the pumpkin here, I'm just going to follow that. I'm going to zoom out. And so it comes, it's a little hard to see, but it comes back here. It's actually covered up by him. So this can just come back here somehow. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be covered by the pumpkin. Come around the bottom, and then I'm going to trace up this way. Zoom in. If I just hold Alt and move my scroll wheel, that'll zoom in. Now this is a little off, but I can adjust that later. Don't worry about that while you're making your path. And then just continue on. And then I'm going to close it. And again, you want to make sure you close all of your paths so we could color these. So I have a few little things here I can clean up now. I'm actually just going to use my direct selection tool, click on it, and then I can start cleaning those up here. Like this one here is a little sharp. We'll just smooth that out. Maybe bring it in there a little bit. That's looking good. Smooth this guy out. Okay, so that's going to be my path. And if you want just to see as an example, you could color it for now to see what it's going to look like. We'll name this path actually. Okay, I'm just going to temporarily throw some color on there so we get a quick idea of what it's going to look like. You want to make sure you select it. So you can either come and click it in here, but once you start to get a lot of paths, it might be hard to find and select in there. So you can just select it in here by clicking that side icon. That's going to select my path. I'm going to put just a quick color on there for now. Select the hill. Double click on there. And I think for the hill it's going to be like a darker color like that. So that's going to cover up everything, but this is just temporary. And then let's select the sky and make like a darker kind of purpley sky. So since the sky is on the very bottom, it's going to go behind that. So it doesn't really matter that we just made that one big rectangle. And then I can also go and smooth out my hill here. So if the sky was above, it would look like that, and then you can just go in and drag and drop it, or like in the Arrange tutorial that was on this week, you could select it, come up to Object, Arrange, Send Backward, which is Control and bracket, so I'm going to send it back. So that did it once, so I'm going to hit Control, bracket, and it's going to send it all the way to the back. You can bring it forward or send it back. So that's an easy way to do it. You can just select your paths and move them around like that, and that's going to move them around in the layer. Okay, so now that I'm done with my background layer, I'm going to take the color off. I'm going to just select all of these, make sure my color icon is selected. It has a question mark on it right now because it's 3 different colors and not the same one. So you can just click on it and hit none. So that's going to get rid of those. Now if these get in your way while you're tracing other things, you can just hide that layer for now. So you can turn it off, hide it, and not worry about it at the moment. Alright, so I'm going to create my next layer now, and I think I'll start with the scarecrow next. So I want to make a new layer, make sure it's above the background layer since the scarecrow's over top the background, and we're going to just name that Scarecrow. I'm going to make sure that layer is selected, and I'll come and grab my pen tool. Okay, I'm going to start with, I think, the pumpkin head here. So that I think I want to have on its own sublayer, because I'm going to have all these pieces, the stem, each of these little segments, the eyes, the mouth, will all be their own sublayer. So I'm just going to have my Scarecrow layer selected and click Create New Sublayer. So that's going to create the sublayer underneath Scarecrow. We're going to name that Pumpkin. And then with that selected, I'll start to draw my paths on here, and they'll go into the pumpkin layer. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom in, and I think I'll start with this stem. And again, you'll have to rearrange things as you make them, because this stem, I want it to be over top of this piece, but I also want this piece to be behind all of these pieces. And even though we only see that little part of it, I'm going to make the full thing, I won't go all the way down, but just make it enough so it's closed and can hide behind there. Okay, so let's start with the pumpkin. Just going to start building these. Start tracing it out here. And when I mark you on your paths, I am going to look for how clean they are. So things like this, just go back and kind of clean them up, smooth out as much as you can. Okay, so I'm not going to follow this. I'm going to just bring it down here and go underneath. This doesn't matter how smooth it is because we're not going to see it. And then come back up here. So I think I'll set one about there. And maybe one there. Actually don't think I need that one there, so I'm going to hover over it, and you'll see that I get a minus sign on it if I just hover it, or I can come and click and hold and do Delete Anchor Point Tool, hover over it, make sure I'm on anchor and not handle, it's a little hard to see. So that's the handle there, and I want to click on the anchor, so that's going to delete that one. And so like in the pen tool tutorial, I have this hard edge here. I want to make that smooth. So I'm going to get my anchor point tool here, and then I'm just going to click and hold, and that'll give me those anchor points I need. I'm also going to just come and clean this up a little bit. Maybe smooth this one out a little bit. Here's another hard edge. We'll get my convert anchor point tool. Smooth that out a bit. That's looking good. Okay, so that will be under here, under my pumpkin. That path is going to be called stem. And I want you to go through and name all of these. But like I mentioned in the layers tutorial, you don't have to name every little thing if you have multiple ones. So say for all of these little straw pieces here, I'm going to be making a lot of those. You don't have to go in and name every single path those. They'll all be kind of together so you'll know where they are. As long as it's easy for you to find things. But for the most part, I want you to be naming all of your main paths. Okay, so I have the stem. Now let's start on these pumpkin segments. So I'm going to grab my pen tool. And I think I'll start on this back one here. So I'm just going to select here. And then I'm going to go right through here, even though the stem's covering it. And then I'll just come behind here. Okay, so that will be that little segment there. And now I think I'll do this one here. So we can name that Pumpkin Piece 1. And then they'll know all of these are the pieces for it. Okay, so let's start with this next piece here. Maybe just start up here. And then I'll come behind here. And that will be that piece. And then let's start on this one here. I'll come and clean this up later. Start the second piece here. I won't do this whole thing, but I want to just give you an example on how to start. Come over the eye, so the eye will go over this, so it doesn't matter. Same with the mouth here. And close it off. Okay, let's just continue on with our pieces here. Grab our pen tool. I'm going to start over here. It's going to go under this one, so I'll come around it. and close it off. Then let's start with this path here. So I'm going to start kind of over here somewhere. Come behind this one, and then around here, and close it off. And we have these last two pieces here, so I'm going to start over here somewhere. Bring it around. Doesn't really matter because these are going to be hidden, so they don't have to be perfectly clean. And then we'll start up here, come around, and close it. Okay, let's just start on this last piece here. It's just this little segment. And we'll close it off there. Okay, so I have all my segments made. You're going to want to go through and name all of those. To make it a little easier to see, I'm just going to select all of them and just put some white on there. So now you can see how everything's layered and you can get a better idea of what your paths look like. So I'm definitely going to want to come through and clean all of these edges up. But first I'm just going to arrange everything correctly. So the stem I want over top of this piece is going to go right to the back. We can grab it and just drag it under, but I'm going to use the arrange function. So I'm going to grab this piece, I need to send it back. I'll do Control and bracket. Send it back. This piece also needs to go back. Send it back. And that's actually looking good. They're all in the right place. Now I just really need to clean up some lines. I'm not going to do them all now, but I'll just go and do a few. So right in here, there's some really funky pieces. I'm just going to grab my direct selection tool, grab that anchor point, those handles, smooth that out. And if you're accidentally grabbing the wrong path, you can go in and just either lock it or hide it, so you can work on one without grabbing the wrong stuff. And again, if your anchor isn't showing up, just grab your anchor point tool, and those handles will show up. Okay, and then you just want to go through and clean up all of your lines. Okay, and you just want to continue on with this. You want to make layers for everything, make all of your paths, name all of your paths, make sublayers as necessary, and arrange everything so it's all correctly layered. You don't have to worry about your text until next week, but if you want to get started on it, you can either trace it if you want and make your own font, or you can find and download a font online that you like. Here's the site I like to use. It's called Dafont. So DAFONT.com. They have a ton of free fonts, and you can just search through all of these to find something you like. So since mine's kind of a horror one, I'm going to look for horror, which I think they have. Here's some horror. And then I'm going to find a font that I like. And it doesn't have to be the exact font that I drew in. I just drew that one in. I can find something else. So say I like this one right here. I can just hit download. And that's going to download that font. And then you just want to find your downloaded file. I saved it to my desktop. This one comes in a zipped folder, so I'm just going to do extract here. Your computer might be a little different. And then you're going to get these font files here. So I have two of them. So I'm going to right click and hit install, and then it'll show up in your fonts in Illustrator. If you need a refresher on text, take a look at the Type Tool tutorial in week 2. Again, you don't have to do all of your text this week, but you will have to do it next week, so you can get started on it now if you want to. So once you're done tracing your paths and you have all of your layers made, your sublayers, everything organized and named, you should have something that looks like this. Now, like I said, it's going to look a little cluttered and confusing because you're seeing through everything, so it might be easier just to select it all and throw a white color on there. That way it's easier for you to see while you arrange everything, and you can get a good idea of what it'll look like, but it's still easy enough for me just to select it and turn that color off so I can get a good look at your paths. Okay, so once you have all of this, and you'll notice that my paths do come off the edge, that's why I have this mask layer here. Okay, so you have your final like this traced. You should have 75% or more traced. Once you're done with everything, you're going to want to save it one last time. You should be saving pretty regularly as you go. So I'm just going to save it, close it, and I'm going to find my file here. So I have it right here, and that's the one you're going to want to submit through Laulima, this AI Illustrator file. So I'm going to open up Laulima, and then again, like always, at the bottom here, you're going to have the assignment section. It's grayed out right now because the assignment's not open, but you'll want to click on there, and then you'll want to submit in the attachment section that Illustrator file. All right, that's going to cover your homework for this week.